and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Allison Clark and I'm a senior portrait and wedding photographer based out of Southern New Hampshire, and I'm also an educator for those who are just starting their own photography businesses, whether it be senior portrait or wedding related, or if you just need a little help with the business side of things, I got you. If you weren't here last week, we talked about 3 different ways that you can better your portrait photography compositions. So if you haven't seen that video, pause now and hop over to watch those 3 tips first, because this video is a continuation of last week. It is my remaining 3 tips, part 2 of the series, so definitely go check out that video first and then come back over to this one. Alright guys, now that that is out of the way, I want to dive into my remaining 3 tips to better your portrait photography compositions. These are all things to do in camera before you get into Lightroom, before you get into Photoshop, so that your job later in post-processing is easier because your compositions are already stellar. Tip number 1, or if you were here last week, I guess it's tip number 4, is to be aware of your surroundings. So sometimes if you're in, let's say, an open field and you're posing your subject, but way behind them is a telephone pole, you need to be aware of where that telephone pole is in relation to your subject. Sometimes if you're unaware of those things, you might notice later in post-processing that that telephone pole is actually coming straight out of your client's head, which then you'll have to edit it out, or you leave it and then your composition would suffer. So in order to save yourself time later in Photoshop and to better your composition, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of where the things in the background are in relation to your subject. Another example would be if you have a senior and you have them laying on their stomach and they kick their feet up in the back. If you don't angle yourself correctly, their feet might be coming out of their head as bunny ears, which would be a pain to edit out. So definitely be aware of your surroundings while you're shooting to make sure that there is nothing coming out of your subject in the background that looks kind of funky that you might have to deal with later. The next tip I have for you guys is to use foregrounds to create interest. I love utilizing this tip if there is maybe a branch with some leaves or some wildflowers in front of my subject. I like to shoot in a way that creates a nice depth to the photograph. So there's already a lot of separation between my subject and what's behind them, but if I can add an element in the foregrounds to create even more depth, then that is just going to improve my composition that much more. The best way to accomplish this is to use a shallow depth of field, and if you're shooting portraits, you should already be shooting somewhere between like 1.8 and 2.8 are kind of, you know, my main aperture range. And if you're shooting at a very wide aperture, meaning you're getting a very shallow depth of field, then those things in the foreground will be nice and soft, nice and out of focus, and help you create that depth that you're looking for in your composition. My final portrait photography composition tip is to shoot from slightly above your subject. This is great for a number of reasons. First of all, if you're shooting from slightly above your subject, they will have to slightly look up at you, which will elongate their neck and make sure that they don't have a double chin, which nobody wants in their photos. I'm sure if you're a family photographer, if you shoot weddings and you've had family formals, grandma or mom is always like, hey, can you edit out my double chin? So this is a great way to make sure that nobody has a double chin, everybody will feel beautiful, and you don't have to worry about editing or smoothing anything out later. Another reason this is a great tip is because it helps keep their face and their head as the main subject of the photograph while their body is just a part of the composition. If you're shooting from below, just because of the distortion of lenses and, you know, the direction that you're shooting, the body of your subject will be more of the main focus of the photograph when you really want their face as the main focus. Especially if you're a senior portrait photographer, it's all about the face. So definitely make sure that that is the main subject. And then the third reason that this is a really great composition tip is because when you have your subjects looking slightly up instead of looking down at you, it helps brighten their eyes. Since they're looking a little bit more up to the sky, there's more light in their eyes, it makes their eyes pop that much more, whereas if they're looking down, the eye sockets will naturally cast a shadow over the eyes, so then you'll have to worry about brightening up the eyes later instead of just having a beautiful bright eye right off the bat in camera. And there you have it. That concludes my little 2-part series, my 6 tips for better portrait photography compositions. I hope that this little series was helpful for you guys, and definitely let me know in the comments below if it was, and if you have any questions about the 3 tips that I covered in this video. And if you have any ideas for future videos, any questions that you have for me that you want me to make a video about, leave those in the comments below too, because I'm always open to new ideas and I want to make sure that the content I'm creating is actually helpful to you guys. So definitely let me know what you want to learn about. Remember to leave a like also if this video is helpful to you, and check out the description below for links to my social media pages and my website, as well as the link to my free download, and if you haven't snagged it yet, it's a good one. It's called Posing with Confidence, 6 Tips to Help You Slay Your Next Senior Session, and it's my top 6 tips, the 6 things that I do at every session to ensure that I sound confident, that my client feels comfortable, and that they feel confident, and that the whole client experience is just a positive one. While all of the tips included in that free download have to do with posing, they might not be things that you've thought of before, and so you should definitely check it out if you haven't already, and just click that link below. Like I said, it is totally free. And that's all I have for you guys today. Hit that subscribe button if you want to be notified when I come out with new videos. I come out with new videos every single Friday, so I will see you then next week.